What happened to you, all covered in blood? I screamed when my 10th grade daughter, who was supposed to have gone to my husband's hometown, came home with blood streaming down her forehead. After rushing to tend to her, I immediately contacted my husband. Then, when he answered the phone, I couldn't help but yell at him.
Where are you?
I told you I'm on a business trip, didn't I? I was dumbfounded by his unexpected reply. Because I clearly remember seeing off my husband and daughter for their trip to his hometown 5 days ago. There in front of me was my child, seriously injured. Seeing my confusion, my daughter revealed a shocking truth. My name is Camelia, a 40-year-old housewife, working part-time. My husband Bruno, also 40, is a salesman who visits various schools to sell high school textbooks. Trust is important, he says, and his neatly composed demeanor is just so cool. Our daughter Laura just entered the 10th grade this fall. She used to be so clingy to me, but now, she's so responsible that she's often cooking dinner by the time I get back from my part-time job. Bruno, Laura, and I were living a peaceful life until my mother became bedridden due to an internal illness 5 years ago. Since then, I've been busy juggling caregiving and part-time work. I haven't been able to visit my in-laws much since my mother fell ill, even missing Thanksgiving greetings. But during those times, Bruno would say, "Don't push yourself. Isn't it great to have an understanding husband?" And go back to his parents' home alone, joking and laughing. I felt terrible, but with my hands full caring for my mother, I was grateful for his understanding. However, 3 years ago, my mother-in-law passed away suddenly in an accident. My father-in-law, John, was so heartbroken, as they were very close, and Bruno's trips back home became more frequent. Moreover, Bruno would say things like, "I want to take Dad on a trip to cheer him up," or, "I want to treat him to a delicious steak," resulting in expenses increasing with each visit, $300, $500. But, as I had been neglecting my visits to my in-laws to care for my own mother, I couldn't really complain about the money. Then one day, as usual, Bruno mentioned the expenses for his next trip home. "The next time I go back to my place, it's going to cost $1,000.
What?
I couldn't help but wonder if Bruno really needed such a large sum of money for a single trip home, but he never explained the details of the expenses. I guess it must be necessary, if I think of it as showing gratitude to John. I convinced myself with that thought. However, due to the sudden expense, I had no choice but to temporarily withdraw money from the account I had been saving for Laura's education. I'll have to cut back on trips to the beauty salon for a while and make sure not to dip into Laura's savings. From then on, I worked hard to save money and gradually replenish my daughter's account. While living these frugal days, Laura successfully completed her school applications. Just when things seemed to be settling down, "I want to see my granddaughter. It's been a while," John said.
All right. Let's take Laura and Dad out for steak as a reward for always working hard.
Really?
Yay!
Seeing Lara's beaming smile. "Thank you for always being so patient," I said, stroking her head. She had never complained, despite always having to make sacrifices and helping with my mother's care. I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Then, on the morning of the day they were to visit Bruno's parents, Laura cheerfully waved.
"I'll bring back some souvenirs,"
she said.
"Have fun,"
I replied with a smile. Everyone in the family was smiling. Little did we know then what was about to happen. It was around noon, 5 days after Bruno and Laura left for his parents' house. I was preparing lunch in the kitchen when I heard the entrance door open. "Who is it, coming in without ringing the bell?" Startled, I called out,
"Hello!"
and headed to the entrance, only to find Laura standing there with blood streaming down her forehead.
"What happened?"
I screamed, almost like a cry, and looked around for Bruno, but he was nowhere to be seen. Trembling, I let my trembling daughter into the house and immediately called Bruno.
"Where are you?"
"I'm at work. I told you I went on a business trip the day after I took Laura to my parents' place." I I was utterly confused, as I hadn't heard anything about his work.
I didn't know about any trip, and more importantly, Laura has come back seriously injured.
It's probably just a fall. Girls her age tend to exaggerate. Don't take it seriously. Bye. Bruno hastily said just that and hung up forcibly. I could never just accept. Such an absurd story from him. Oh, really? While tending to my daughter. Why did you get hurt? Did Dad go to work? I asked. Laura, with a pale face and trembling lips, finally murmured. Dad pushed me. I was shocked, but gently rubbed her back and listened to her story. Then, an unbelievable truth came to light. Bruno had been keeping secrets from us, and he had inflicted a serious injury on Laura after she discovered them. And that wasn't all. He had threatened Laura.
If you tell anyone about this, next time it won't just be an injury,
he said. John returned from an outing just as Bruno hesitated, allowing Laura to escape from her in-laws' house. Fortunately, Laura had some money with her, enabling her to take the bus alone. But I can only imagine how anxious she must have been, hiding her injuries and making her way back here. I will never forgive anyone who hurts my sweet daughter. I swore revenge, not only for Bruno raising his hand against our daughter but also for the secrets he kept from us. After hearing about Bruno's misdeeds, I reached for my mobile phone to call John. And was surprised to see a mountain of missed calls from him. Oh, John, I'm sorry. I was cooking and didn't notice the phone. No, it's fine. More importantly, Laura had to rush back home for some urgent matter. I was worried if she made it back safely, that's why I called so many times. Hearing John's words, I was speechless. Bruno had concocted such a lie to cover up the fact that his injured daughter had fled back home. I then spilled everything to John, who was unaware of the situation, about what I learned from Laura. Laura will be okay, I'm taking her to the hospital. But I can't forgive Bruno. Could you please keep him at your house for a while so I can deal with him? John replied. Of course. And promised to help. He agreed to cunningly persuade Bruno to stay at his parents' house for a while. In the meantime, I ran around making various preparations for confronting Bruno. 5 days later. After finishing the investigation into Bruno's secrets, I was heading to his parents' house. Just as I was about to ring the entrance doorbell, I saw Laura running towards me, out of breath. Mom. Wait.
I told you to stay at home.
I can't just sit there. He needs to take responsibility for my injury. I had planned to confront Bruno alone at his parents' house, not wanting Laura to witness a conflict between her parents. However, Laura clearly had no intention of staying quiet. I think I have a right to speak up too. She was adamant. Reluctantly, I accepted Laura's anger and decided to face the situation together. We were greeted by John, who already knew our plan, and upon entering the living room, we saw Bruno, seemingly just woken up, lounging in his pajamas and watching TV, despite it being midday. Oh, I thought you were on a business trip. Surprised by my sudden voice, Bruno sprang up. Well, I was supposed to go, but then it got cancelled unexpectedly. Bruno began to stammer out a lame excuse. But never mind that. What about Lara's injury? I want to hear about it. Oh, the clumsy girl. She apparently fell down the stairs and hit her forehead. I almost yelled at Bruno for his blatant evasion, but John beat me to it.
Enough. I know that Lara's injury is your fault.
Laura added. Yes. That's right. And I glared at Bruno. Realizing he was in a tough spot, Bruno suddenly looked smug and retorted.
You never showed your face at my parents' place, and now you act all high and mighty. I've been the one doing the filial duties for both of us.
Bruno sneered, thinking I had no comeback. Indeed, until now. I had thought he was right and had kept quiet. But after hearing Laura's story, I knew all too well that Bruno's words were full of lies. Oh really?
Is leaving your father alone at home and making Laura do all the housework your idea of filial piety? That's right! Since you brought me here, you've just been relaxing at home. Shut up. This was just a one-time thing. Usually, it's me who does all the hard work.
As Bruno arrogantly boasted, I took out John's household ledger, which I had been given beforehand. It detailed not only the financial transactions, but also how Bruno spent his time at his parents' house. Let me read some of it to you. June 10th, gave Bruno $200 for transportation. He lounged around all day and went out at night as usual, returning in the morning. Food expenses increased due to Bruno's stay. I calmly read out the entries. According to the ledger, every time Bruno visited.
My wife won't even give me money for the trip.
He lied, claiming that he receives money from John. Taking advantage of my absence, Bruno portrayed me as a stingy and scary wife to gain sympathy from his father.
A grown man, still leeching off his parents, aren't you ashamed? And they even take care of various things for you. You always come over and I feel bad, thinking you're not getting any pocket money from your wife, so I try to help out. But it was all lies, wasn't it?
Bruno, cornered by our accusations, fell silent and didn't respond.
Swindling money from your father, what exactly did you use it for?
Well,
no need to say anything. You're probably just thinking up more lies.
Ignoring Bruno's muttering, I thrust a certain photograph in front of him.
You wanted money so badly because you were splurging at places like this. How do you know about this place?
The photo showed Bruno entering a dubious nightclub. Bruno's face drained of color, clearly not expecting me to know this much. Indeed, the secret Lara had discovered during the visit was about this very matter. Lara had thought Bruno was diligently taking care of John, but when she noticed his repeated late-night returns, she became suspicious and started her own investigation. She secretly installed a location tracking app on Bruno's mobile phone and, after he left, used her computer to check his whereabouts, always showing the same place. When Lara researched it on the internet, she discovered it was a night spot catering to men. While she was about to call and inform me, Bruno returned home. He became furious upon finding Lara checking his location and the club on her computer and pushed her, causing her to hit her head on the edge of a shelf and bleed. You know the rest. After hearing Lara's story, I left my mother in professional care for a few days and staked out the club to gather evidence of Bruno's escapades, capturing photos of him entering the establishment. When I saw Bruno enter the club so lightheartedly, the shock I felt was indescribable. And to think, the money for this recent trip home, though temporarily, was taken from Lara's college fund.
Dad, you're the worst!
Feeling awkward with the undeniable evidence of the photos, Bruno muttered, "Isn't this normal for men?" And looked up at John, seeking agreement.
What are you talking about? Dipping into your child's college fund for nightlife is despicable. I'm tired from work. A little fun should be okay.
Lara sighed in disbelief at Bruno's brazenness.
Mom, do you know what kind of place that is?
Eh? No, I just took the photos and left immediately.
I thought so.
Here, take a look. Lara said and spread out several printouts of the club's website on the table. John and I leaned over to see the girls in the club dressed in school uniforms. All appeared to be adults, but it was clear the establishment specialized in this kind of cosplay service. Oh. To expose our daughter to such a world. I was filled with remorse, but Lara seemed unfazed.
So Dad likes this kind of stuff.
Gross. She shuddered as if chilled while thrusting the papers at Bruno.
You don't have to go that far. Having a fetish for uniforms could be a big problem if your school clients find out, right? I doubt your company, which sells educational materials to schools, would continue employing someone with such hobbies.
As I gave him a cold gaze, Bruno turned pale.
Oh, right.
I quickly pulled out Bruno's schedule book, which I had found left in his business bag.
Looking at this, I now know all the schools you've been visiting.
Maybe I should contact these clients about your wonderful hobby.
Please, not that. I'm sorry. I went too far. I'll change, I promise.
Bruno must have realized there was no escaping the situation. He started to tremble and collapsed onto the floor. Despite his apologies, years of his club visits and extravagance, culminating in injuring Lara, were unforgivable.
Who's going to believe the words of a liar like you?
I've already consulted a lawyer and am ready for divorce. You'll pay back every penny you squandered, plus compensation. This is the end for us.
No, please.
Bruno tried to cling to Lara, but she recoiled.
Yuck. Get away from me.
And eventually, wah. He broke down crying. We watched his pathetic state with cold indifference. Shortly after, the divorce was finalized, and Bruno was ordered to pay back the $15,000 he had squandered plus $30,000 in damages. Somehow, his club visits were leaked, resulting in his termination from his job. John cut ties with him, and now Bruno lives alone in an old apartment, barely getting by with day jobs. Unable to pay the damages, he had to borrow money from dubious lenders and now lives in fear of debt collectors. Meanwhile, after the divorce, I had more time to myself. With Lara's help, my mother's health improved significantly, and she no longer needed constant care. Now, the three of us women live together, enjoying a happy and harmonious life.
I washed your baby in the washing machine.
My assailant burst into laughter the moment she saw my face. She had always disliked me, so she must have been waiting for this opportunity. But I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in response. My daughter is sleeping right next to me. My assailant Janice looked utterly shocked at first, then turned pale as she watched our daughter Kyrie sleeping soundly. This story is about a major family incident involving all our relatives, which happened one Christmas. My name is Patrice, a 35-year-old homemaker. I married Bryant, who is 5 years younger, and after about 7 years, we were finally blessed with a child when I turned 35. Our daughter Kyrie, now 8 months old, is a lively baby who loves her milk and sleeps well. As an older mother, I was relieved, but there were still challenges to face. One of them was my assailant, Janice, who is 10 years younger than me. She disliked me for marrying her brother and constantly harassed me whenever she got the chance. Janice's attachment and love for her brother Bryant were intense, something you might call a brother complex. I don't have siblings, so I can't fully understand, but I find it bizarre that at 25, she still wants to shower with her biological brother. Bryant always brushed it off as a joke, but I couldn't make sense of it. She looked down on me for being an older wife and for having a child late in life. When Bryant wasn't around, she would invariably taunt me, saying, "How did an old lady like you manage to trick my brother?" I'm just curious, for future reference. Janice, I don't think that's an appropriate way to speak, but...
Shut up. You're getting too cocky just because you're acting submissive. It's disgusting that an old lady like you stole my brother and then got pregnant.
Could you please keep it down? The baby might wake up. I held back a sigh and deliberately spoke to Janice in polite, respectful language. After all, she was constantly at our house, clinging to Bryant and trying to follow him every time he left his seat, which also troubled him. Moreover, she would ring the doorbell early in the morning and not leave until late at night. Eventually, she started acting childishly, saying, "I'm going to stay over at my brother's place." Bryant had his hands full just trying to send her home. Good grief, Janice is such a handful. Honey, I have something I want to ask you about her. I cautiously asked Bryant if he was aware of Janice's terrible behavior. His response was, "I had no idea, this is news to me." Bryant was surprised by what I told him. It all made sense now. Janice had been pretending to be nice in front of her brother and waited for him to leave to insult me. Remembering how Janice used to cling to Bryant, acting as if she were his real girlfriend, made me feel sick to my stomach. Bryant found it hard to believe, but I told him the facts as they were. even after that, Janice continued her usual behavior.
Let's go take a shower together, big brother.
Trying to drag him into the bathroom. But after hearing my story, Bryant began to reject her advances.
Look, Janice, we're adults now. Taking a shower together isn't appropriate.
I know it's weird. Janice didn't miss my muttered comment. Right after watching Bryant head for the shower, she turned to me and suddenly punched me in the stomach.
Oof!
I couldn't contain the pain and crouched down on the floor.
It's your fault. You must have put some ideas into my brother's head.
Then she relentlessly kicked my back as I was clutching my stomach.
Get lost already!
As the time approached for Bryant to usually come out of the shower, Janice forcibly made me stand up and pushed me onto the sofa.
Listen, if you tell my brother about this, I'll make you suffer even more.
Groaning in pain, I was completely overwhelmed by Janice's violent behavior. What's worse, her anger, initially directed at me, gradually shifted to someone else. It happened one day when Bryant was about to take Kyrie into the shower.
I'll help you, big brother. Maybe I'll take a shower too.
Janice was fully intent on joining them, heading towards the bathroom. Knowing I had to stop this, I opened my mouth, but Bryant looked fed up.
Janice, I've told you before, I'm not showering with you. I have a wife and a daughter, so it's time for you to move on from me. No, no. Why are you being so mean?
Ignoring her tantrum, Bryant quickly picked up Kyrie and headed for the shower. This scene repeated several times, with Janice being rejected by him each time, gradually shifting her anger from me to Kyrie. She couldn't stand the thought of the baby showering with Bryant, her brother, while she was rejected. That's probably what she felt. Soon, Janice would cause a terrible incident. One Christmas, our family was invited to my in-laws, where we gathered with relatives. Naturally, Janice was there too, and I had a bad feeling about it. However, in front of the relatives, Janice's true colors were never revealed, and surprisingly, she was quite well behaved. Despite her usual disdain for me, she approached me with a smile and acted friendly.
But honestly, it's kind of creepy. There's no way she would suddenly be nice to me.
I decided to avoid Janice as much as possible and went to where the children of our relatives were gathered. There, over 10 children and babies were huddled together, holding on to their allowances and toys given by the relatives. I approached a relative, Opal, who was there. Opal, thanks again for the baby clothes. How about we take a picture of our 2 kids? She had given me matching baby clothes for my daughter and hers as a birth gift, so I had dressed Kyrie in them for the visit. We both had a great time taking photos of the children with our mobile phones. Eventually, the kids decided to play in the snow-covered garden. They were quickly covered in snow. And even a nearby baby got splashed with it. That's when Janice was asked by a relative to help wash the children in the shower. She grimaced for a moment, but then, surprisingly,
All right. Come on, everyone, follow me.
She picked up a baby with a smile and led the children away. However, with over 10 kids, they formed a long line following Janice.
Oh no, Kyrie got left behind.
Janice seemed not to notice, and Kyrie was sitting there with snow on her clothes. I was about to take Kyrie to the shower, but she started crying, probably wanting milk. Oh, there. Maybe I should give her milk first. I wanted to wash the gifted baby clothes right away, but after feeding her, Kyrie fell asleep, making it difficult to undress her. Reluctantly, I let it go, laid Kyrie beside me, and enjoyed chatting with the relatives. Then, Janice appeared with a triumphant look on her face.
Ahaha! I washed your baby in the washing machine. That'll show you.
Excuse me. I couldn't understand what she was talking about. What did she mean by washing a child in a washing machine?
Kyrie is sleeping right next to me.
What? Janice looked confused as well, seeing Kyrie sleeping soundly. We were both unclear about what was happening. Suddenly, a scream came from the bathroom. Janice and I rushed there, and we found Opal in a complete panic.
Opal, calm down. What happened?
Opal claimed that when she opened the washing machine, she found a baby inside. And that baby was her daughter. Her voice, crying and holding her child, attracted more and more relatives. Seizing the moment, Janice pointed at me.
Patrice! How could you?
What are you talking about? As soon as Janice shouted, all eyes turned to me, and I was taken aback. Then, the relatives started to confront me.
Patrice, we need to hear your side of the story.
Taking advantage of this distraction, I saw Janice sneaking out of the house.
Wait! Janice!
In this desperate moment, Bryant's sharp voice rang out.
This is not the time for accusations. We need to get to the hospital right away.
Bryant immediately called the paramedics, and Opal and her husband, with the baby, boarded the ambulance and headed to the hospital. Left at the in-laws' house, surrounded by relatives, I seethed with anger at Janice for trying to pin this on me even in such a situation. I'll make sure she pays for this. She better be ready. I decided to explain all of Janice's misdeeds to the relatives and asked for their cooperation in punishing her. After returning from the hospital, Opal and her husband, furious after hearing everything, agreed to participate in the plan. I asked Bryant to lure Janice back to the in-laws' house with a phone call.
Janice, Patrice admitted her guilt. I can't believe she would do something so horrible.
Eh? Oh, really?
So, I want to hear more about it. You ran away because you feared Patrice's grudge, right? I'll protect you, so please come back and help us uncover the truth.
Comforted by her brother's kind words, Janice naively returned to the in-laws' house. However, the house was in a state of mourning. Opal, in tears, "My daughter has passed away," she announced to the remaining relatives. While everyone was engulfed in sorrow, Janice was the only one looking smug. It's all Patrice's fault. What are you going to do about this? How will you make amends? Joining in Janice's sneering attitude. How could you do something like this, Patrice?
What grudge did you have against Opal?
The other relatives started accusing me. I'm so sorry. I had to.
Janice was after Bryant, so I thought of framing her for the incident with the children in the shower.
As I began to break down in tears, Janice started to panic. What? Me, after my brother? How could you make up such a lie? Is there any proof? So, I said, actually, and showed Janice and the relatives the screen of my mobile phone. It was a recording of our home's laundry room, focusing on the washing machine. Janice could be seen taking Brian's underwear from the laundry, sniffing it, and then hiding it in her pocket. She had been stealing her own brother's underwear every time she visited our house.
Janice, what are you doing? I thought it was strange that I've been losing underwear recently.
Wait! This recording has nothing to do with what happened. I was forced by Patrice to put the child in the washing machine against my will.
Oh, so you admit to doing it yourself?
But you forced me to.
I immediately played another recording from my phone. It was Janice's voice saying, I washed your baby in the laundry. Her face turned pale as she listened.
Janice kept coming to our house every day, hitting and kicking me, so I've been collecting evidence all along.
I had suspected something fishy about Janice's unusually cheerful demeanor that day, so I kept the recording function on my mobile phone active. Janice fell to her knees and after a moment, looked up and clung to me.
Please, don't tell the police. I don't want to get arrested for this.
That's too easy for you. You put an innocent child through this. And you almost did a terrible thing by mistaking my daughter for Opal's child and putting her in the washing machine.
What do you mean? Opal's daughter is dead, isn't she? The story about the baby dying after being put in the washing machine was a lie to deceive Janice. Opal had set up the washing machine and left for a moment. Janice then put the baby inside and closed the lid. But she didn't know how to use the washing machine and left, thinking it had started. Opal returned, switched it on, and then realized there was a child inside. There was no danger to the baby's life, but Opal was still furious at Janice.
Even my relatives accusing me was all an act to catch you off guard. You're no longer welcome in this family.
But how can this be?
Janice collapsed to the floor. Afterward, Janice was arrested by the police called by the relatives. She was rejected by her beloved brother.
Never contact me again.
And cut off by all the relatives. Even if she gets out of jail, there's no one left to help her. Meanwhile, Opal's child who was put in the washing machine has fully recovered. My daughter is growing up healthy, playing with the other children like sisters, as Bryant and I watch them fondly every day.